This examiner's report will give you all the information really that you need for any SBL exam and to perform well in any SBL exam. So, looking at various things that the examiner told us. For every element of technical content, that means just knowledge that you've learnt, answers need to be applied to the case. So just showing your knowledge off, no marks. Repetition of your rote learned knowledge attracted few, if any, marks. General professional marks, the ones we're all scared of, these professional marks, you got these in general for things being well presented. We'll look into what that means in a bit. No unnecessary repetition, so you're just repeating the same thing all the time. Don't do that. Answer the question set, not the one you wish was set. And use an appropriate tone for the audience. All of those sorts of things, which are really easy, will give you extra professional marks. Remember, there's 20 professional marks available. I'm going to go into all of those with specific questions as well later. But I just want to carry on with some general ideas from the examiner, who said the most competent candidates integrated, used information from the case study. That's the key. If you're not doing that, you'll not be passing. And that's why students who've got very little time to study often pass this exam, because they haven't got the knowledge, so they have to use the case study, and that's what helps them pass. He says the main weaknesses of students are a lack of depth to the answer, okay? So knowing what a well-developed answer is, okay? It's not enough just to say that's unethical. Not considering the context, not looking at the case study, just again, relying on your knowledge. Remember that material, you've got all these different exhibits, material for more than one exhibit may be relevant to each task. You have to integrate from the different exhibits, unfortunately. So what do all these exhibits actually do? Why are these absolutely key, this whole case study? Well, it's in there that you get the material for your answers. So what should this company do next? Well, have a look in the material, have a look in the exhibits. What are their opportunities? What are their threats? What are their advantages? What are their disadvantages? It gives context for your answer. So if you're saying, I think it's really good to put up prices, but the economy is going downhill and people are struggling to have money, maybe not such a good idea. It'll give you the structure for your answer. It'll tell you, give me the benefits, give me, whatever it might be. And the priority for your answers. You decide from the information given, from what you've been told, what's the most important answers. So all of those, and again, this is all very generic, but I am going to go into specifics in a minute. Now, really important, because I've been talking about how the exhibits and how the case study material is really vital. Don't just reproduce it without commenting on it. Okay, you'll get no marks for that. It's just a waste of time. So, when we talk about well-developed points, well-structured points, what do we actually mean? Well, you balance depth and breadth. If you're making 6 points, you can keep so that's quite a lot of breadth. You can keep the depth quite small. If you're making just 2 points, the depth needs to be bigger, doesn't it? So always a balance we're looking for. Cover the most important points. And the scenario will tell you, will make it clear what's really important. Don't pad, don't just waffle on because you think that the more you write, the better it is. It's not. You're losing professional marks. Don't make the same point in a slightly different way, which is what we all try and do, try and kid the examiner. It doesn't work. And what really will help you with your structure is just copy and paste the task requirements. So therefore, the marker knows, right, we're doing part A, task 1 here. And it also makes you focus on the question because you don't have to keep going back to the requirement because you've copied and pasted it into your word processor. What about time management in this exam? Well, it's seemingly not so bad, okay? But do try the ACCA mock past paper, go to the ACCA website, use their format, do it to time, do it under exam conditions. Don't spend all your time lengthy planning no matter what teachers tell you. You don't have time for that. You really want to get on with it. Have a good understanding of the scenario, then start working. No repeating, unnecessary padding, just takes loads of time up, doesn't it? So, why do students fail this exam? Hopefully it's now becoming clear. Not developing your points, using the scenario. So just saying this is good or bad, not saying why that's particularly important in this scenario. not selecting relevant information from the exhibits, not using the case study, not answering the actual question set. You got a question about something, you waffled on about your knowledge, but wasn't what the examiner was asking. A lack of business acumen, saying things all the time that just wouldn't work in reality. Again, sometimes I get asked questions on here. Can you answer me this question from a BPP textbook? And I say, well, that's really a BPP question. And they say, no, you should be answering it for me. That's a lack of business acumen, isn't it? To expect one business to answer questions from every accountancy question that could possibly in the world. You're not showing business acumen. You're not showing commercial acumen. Okay, you've got to really get good at that. Poor technical knowledge, even though technical knowledge is not important or as important as previous papers, you still do need a little bit, obviously. So, technical marks, this knowledge that we're talking about. Just showing it off alone, no marks. Say why you're talking about it. Why is this bit of technical information really relevant? And what specific issues did you consider to bring this into your answer? And a well-developed point like that will make you 2 marks. So when you're thinking of well-developed, think a significant point, I've put it into context, and I've said what the consequence of each mark is. Do that and you're going to get a good 2 marks. What about if you've got a question about integrated reporting? And you think, good, it's a question about integrated reporting, so I'm going to do a lengthy discussion on the 6 capitals to do with integrated reporting. No marks, because you're not using the scenario. Is that significant to this? Probably not. Okay, so you've got to be really careful with how you're answering these questions. Faults that people make in not picking up the 20 professional marks, ignoring the formats, using an essay style for every requirement. Don't look at what format is being asked for. Not caring who the document's going to and therefore criticising them, the people you actually preparing the document for. Amazingly, people do that. Overlong paragraphs, making 3 or 4 points in one paragraph. It just looks weak and it looks like you've got no logical structure. Not showing commercial acumen, as I've just talked about. So, what I thought I would do now is bring this all into, be a bit more specific about it. So, here's a question from the December 22 exam. It says, prepare a report for the board which evaluates the key external drivers of change. So those of you with a little technical knowledge would realise this is all about Pestel, really. That's the external model, isn't it? But political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal, those sorts of things. And they gave the best answer because it gave a good structure, it gave a good breadth. You're talking about 6 different things. Might not give you the perfect answer, and it's not vital to use Pestel. You could just have ignored Pestel, ignored your technical knowledge, and just talked about proper external drivers as you see them, and still get full marks. In fact, probably more likely to get full marks if you went into a lot of breadth and depth. You had to talk about the consequence of each factor. It becomes really important. So it's not just the significance, not just the context. What's the consequence of this? Why am I telling you this? What could happen here? Don't mention internal factors if he's asked for external factors. This is an example of not answering the question set, and that's what people got into. Okay, another question. Draft a memo for the chief executive. So it's a memo for the chief executive to send to all housing development site controllers. So it's going to the housing site controllers, think of your audience, which advises on the strategic importance of sound cost management and control. How do you keep costs down? How do you control those costs? Budgeting and variance analysis is what you should think of. And you should link that to the scenario, okay? Are they doing that well? Are they, but don't over-criticise the site controllers because that's who you're writing to. So it told you it's a highly competitive industry. Well, in a highly competitive industry, cost management becomes even more vital, doesn't it? Because your competitors will be doing the same. You don't want to be more expensive than your competitors. There was a recent fall in profitability, so sound cost management would help with that. You're getting all of that from the scenario, and that's you saying, look, in this context, this becomes super important. But as I said before, don't criticise the controllers too much because that's who you're presenting to. You lose your professional marks. Let's have a look at this one then. Draft a confidential memo for the chief executive, which assesses the ethical issues and business threats. Okay, so two different things there. Ethical issues, business threats faced by QH as a result of the matters discussed and the comments made by the site controllers. So structure your answer with two sections: ethical issues, business threats. Really good structure. It says also talk about the comments made by the site controller. So each matter, discuss it in turn. Have a really good structure. So really logical, really well structured. And this becomes an easy 12 marks. Many didn't understand correctly ethical principles. So this is where your technical knowledge comes into play. You do need to know things like lack of integrity, lack of professional due care and competence, that sort of thing. Don't just say, this is unethical. That's not enough. Say, well, why is it? Is it because, I see, because there's a lack of due care, because there's a lack of integrity? And what's the consequence of that? Don't say things like, the controller is over the hill as he's been there 30 years. Unprofessional language, keep the tone right. It's a confidential memo for the chief executive. Don't say there's a potential damage to our reputation. There probably is for every threat, but don't say it for every threat because you're just repetition and you'll get no more extra marks. Don't just accept what the controller's comments were because you want to be showing professional skepticism. So don't accept things, question things. What about this one? Draft 2 presentation slides and accompanying notes which explain the benefits and challenges of separating audit and risk committee, on presentation slides. So that's got to be the format that you use. Don't over focus on benefits, which is a tendency because you want to have balance. Okay, so I hope all of that, seen some general comments made by the examiner, talking about using the scenario, talking about non-repetition, talking about professional marks, and then hopefully I've explained it to you by using a few different questions as well. This is how you pass SBL. It's not technical knowledge, it's the way you approach it.